About 2 years ago, I released a video simply titled, "Is TF2 Dead? How Valve Can Save TF2?" in which I outlined what I felt were some of the most notable flaws holding Team Fortress 2 back, and suggested that Valve's lack of communication might have been excusable in the past, back when TF2 was the only class-based shooter on the market. In 2016, almost 10 years after TF2's initial emergence on the scene, Valve was no longer the only publisher interested in producing team-oriented class-based shooters. And with the rise in competition, whose games have been supported by very communicative developers, with regular game updates containing a mix of new original content alongside community-requested gameplay improvements and bug fixes, Valve was placed in a tricky spot. However, now, almost 2 years later, I feel it's important to revisit this subject and update my views to reflect the more modern changes within the gaming industry regarding and surrounding TF2, and its competitiveness in the market compared to other newer industry titles. It's also important to clarify that this is not a direct comparison video pitting TF2 against other games like Overwatch or Paladins. I maintain the outlook that Overwatch and Paladins both are, to greater or lesser extents, a unique mixture of genres, combining specific gameplay mechanics from the MOBA genre and integrating it into the traditional class-based first-person shooter genre. So we're going to completely set that comparison idea aside and get into the meat of today's video. Is TF2 dead? Well, yes and no. Team Fortress 2 as we know it today is an entirely different game than what was originally introduced to us prior to the highly divisive Meet Your Match update released on July 7th, 2016. So in order to discuss the complicated question of TF2's current status, we first have to address some of the more significant events that led us up to this point. Prior to the Meet Your Match update, players relied mainly on community-driven game servers, which for the sake of this video we can divide essentially into one of two categories. Traditional servers, which mostly adhered to using official TF2 maps and rule sets, and non-traditional servers, in which server owners would implement community maps, community custom game modes, and otherwise make significant changes to the gameplay flow. This neutral system of allowing the community full control over how the game could be played gave rise to several notable custom game modes that have remained part of TF2's identity to this day, and some of whom have inspired other games in the larger gaming industry. However, with the significant decrease in major updates throughout 2016, in combination with new emerging games like Overwatch and Paladins, drawing away many TF2 content creators and community-driven source mod programmers, TF2 quickly experienced a massive loss in creative talent, permanently harming the game's long-standing reputation as a community-driven title. Also, with the Meet Your Match update incentivizing players to play on community servers while they queue for a casual or competitive game on the official Valve servers, the mindset of many players began to change. On traditional community servers, where there would generally be smaller groups of players per server, most players would be fairly supportive of one another, and with players generally spending longer periods of time on their preferred community server, natural rivalries would begin to form between individuals and teams. This mindset incentivized players, upon being killed and or dominated by another player or players, to work harder, adapt new strategies, and be forced to improve their raw mechanical talent. This is what allowed community-driven pro servers to exist, with many of the top-tier players playing publicly or privately against one another, using their own specialized rule sets to transform the game into more of an esports scene. Valve worked with several of the major leading competitive TF2 players and streamers to discuss the implementation of an official integrated competitive mode into the game. However, given the lackluster implementation and reception since, it's really questionable how much the team actually listened to said individuals in the first place. After a failed launch with many technical issues, resulting in both the new casual and competitive game modes being effectively broken due to game-breaking bugs, followed by almost a year of no fixes, the TF2 team finally began mending some of the issues hindering people from joining or playing a game, and then later applied additional fixes again several months later as part of the Winter 2016 update. However, the damage was done and the slowly emerging TF2 Pro scene all but died, with most of its top talent moving on to other newer titles in the market, and the creative community continued experiencing a severe downtick in support. As of the time of recording, only a handful of the most famous modded community game modes maintain any relevance, most notably Versus X and Hail, Death Run, Prop Hunt, and trade servers. To tie this into my initial point, TF2 is dead, from a certain point of view. Most of the original Valve TF2 team have moved on to other current or unreleased Valve projects, and the existing team is barely large enough to release 1 to 2 major updates a year. We no longer get Team Fortress 2 comics, which for many years were the community's core way of enjoying TF2's lore and unique sense of humor, and the Valve-produced animated shorts have more or less come to a grinding halt as well. The annual Halloween updates, once regarded as some of the biggest and best updates of any given year, which traditionally contained event-exclusive bosses, including Marasmus the Magician, the Flying Glowing Eye Monoculus, and the Horseless Headless Horseman. Nowadays, Halloween updates are Valve's dumping ground, exclusively for community-created hats and other cosmetics. A lot of what once defined TF2 is now, in 2018, dead and gone. However, what stands before us today is a new game altogether, not at all representative of what came before it. Many of the people playing TF2 today are not necessarily the same ones who bought it at launch or supported it when it transitioned to being free to play. And while some members of the old guard have continued being part of the community, we are now seeing an all-new generation of TF2 players who enjoy playing the game entirely differently than those who came before them. Valve has transformed this game from being essentially a small goofy title with unique character-driven updates and community-produced official game updates to now being more of a traditional mainstream title, in order to maintain its profitable position within the industry. Whether the game is truly dead really depends on what you consider to be TF2's strongest components. For those seeking a more casual, community-driven experience, TF2 is, and will probably remain, effectively dead, devoid of almost all you knew it to be. Whereas for those of you that embrace the more intense focus on quick play and competitive, and don't particularly care about any of the old legacy features I mentioned before, TF2 is very much alive and well, and will likely remain so for the immediate future. TF2's future, just like many other aging games, is uncertain, but as long as Valve continues to produce new updates that the community can rally behind, TF2's future will be bright for several more years to come. I know this has been a rather rambly video, so I appreciate you guys sticking through it to the end, but cliche as it sounds, I am curious to find out which way you guys happen to lean on this topic. Is TF2 dead for you? Do you still play and enjoy it? Or have you moved on to other titles? Let me know what you think down in the comments below. There's no real right or wrong answer to this is a very open-ended question. I'm just trying to share my perspective on this, and I'm speaking for me alone, so if you agree with me, I'll be happy to hear why you think so down below. If you don't, again, same reasons, I'd love to hear what you think, and why you disagree with me. If you enjoyed this video and want to see other discussing videos like this in the future, or my other videos including my Let's Plays or game reviews, hit that subscribe button down below, and opt into getting notifications so you can be among the first to know when a new video goes live. Thanks everyone for the support. This is Warrior Dan signing out. Stay awesome everybody, and peace out.